Welcome to this panel discussion on biotechnology and personalized medicine. And I wanted to start out by expressing my gratitude to the panelists. They have been very generous with their time recently, helping me level set my questions and understand exactly the space. And in that sense of generosity, they have offered to forego position statements and deep introductions so we could jump right into the conversation. So we're just going to take just a few moments to introduce ourselves. I'll start. My name's Chris Salem, and I am the Director of Education and Training for the School of Allied Health Sciences at Kaiser Permanente. And in my role there, I lead the Department of Instructional Innovation and Digital Learning. And that system allows us to rapidly respond to new technologies and new challenges in healthcare and train up the systems and the people necessary to combat those challenges.
Hi, I'm Krista Donaldson, and can you hear me? Okay, you can hear me a bit better. I'm the former CEO of Equalize Health. I'm the founder. I just recently stepped down. Who was here Friday? Show of hands. Okay, great, a few of you. So you may remember I was on the panel at the end of the day, but we work on maternal and newborn health, where there's health disparities. That's the name Equalize Health. What we're going to talk about today, though, we're known for a medical device company, but we actually do a lot more because we have the design ethos. I love that we had a human-centered design panel earlier. Props to everyone there. But we found ourselves doing other types of work when we see a problem, because the design approach sometimes would lead us into advocacy, or would lead us into systems building, or looking at the environment in which technology is needed and designed and sustained. And so I'm excited to talk about that today, too.
Good afternoon. My name is Ty Shattuck. I'm the CEO of Mcmaster Innovation Park. We're a research park owned by Mcmaster University that you heard a little bit about earlier today. We're in the Greater Toronto area. Our mission as a research park, although we'll talk about buildings and whatnot, is really not about the buildings. It's about being a bridge between academia and industry. Mcmaster is really a research powerhouse in the Canadian context and frankly in the global context. But we've historically struggled of how to take those brilliant discoveries and bring them to commercial reality. And that's our mission, is through innovation infrastructure, i.e. the facilities, as well as development of the ecosystem and connecting to other ecosystems, is to bring those ideas to life. And that's really our raison d'etre.
Hi there, good afternoon. My name is Gail Gannon. I'm the founder and CEO of Ensante. We advise companies that specifically focus on health tech and tech for good, not only here, but also in the emerging markets. In addition to that, we're also brought in to help with establishing private-public partnerships in areas where they're interested in developing an entrepreneurial ecosystem. So I'm looking forward to talking with all of you.
Hi everyone, my name is Amir Bamani. I'm a computer scientist and a lecturer at Stanford School of Medicine. And my team, Stanford Deep Down, the Research Computing Center, has been working on large-scale studies, and we have been working in research and education.
Perfect. So in my discussions with the panelists, there were three overarching themes that came out. And those areas were education systems, innovation spaces, and healthcare delivery. And within education systems, it was about creating appropriate teams and appropriate leadership. And inside innovation spaces, it was about making innovation infrastructure available. And inside of care delivery, it was about creating a care model and a delivery model where resources were rapidly available at all times. Now, I think that's where we should start. The care delivery model for the last century was basically focused on what we'd call bedside manner, right? This next century is going to be what we focus on desktop medicine, right? So bedside medicine versus desktop medicine. And desktop medicine is essentially the ecosystem of tools available to a physician or a healthcare practitioner at any one time, immediately right there, whether that's just-on-time scheduling, hey, here's your next appointment, go here, whether that's information or informatics, or even being able to call up a friend and say, hey, I need a consult right now. And so that telemedicine is going to be one of the central keys in desktop medicine. And telemedicine is really part of what you do, but I want to distinguish telemedicine and telehealth from telementoring, right? Because telemedicine is about connecting patients to doctors through distance, Whereas telementoring is about connecting doctors to other doctors or doctors to other experts. And that's going to be the big sea change that we're going to see coming up here. And I was hoping you could talk a little bit about that, Kristen.
You know, we have a program that it started with the ECHO model, and I don't know if anyone's familiar with that. It came out of University of New Mexico, but the idea there is supporting clinicians. So it's actually not just doctors, it can be nurses, it can be repair people. And we got going with that because we were doing it on a test basis in India, and it started with a project in Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh. And what we were seeing is as affordable, high-quality technology was coming online, we were seeing very slow adoption in the smaller cities. And so we wanted to better understand that, and we found a couple things. One is that the doctors at these small hospitals, and many of these are serving a range of patients, from middle class to quite poor, but the doctors were exhausted. They also felt like they didn't have the latest protocol. And so as a result, they were referring patients to very crowded local facilities when they could be treating them at their small local maternity home, for example. And so we started these telementoring programs based on this University of New Mexico model. And what that would be is it would be led by a local expert who would present a case, and it would be every week on Zoom, and this is before Zoom became part of our lexicon with COVID. But they present a case every week, and there'd be some discussion. And so not only was it a great mentoring and learning opportunity, but it was also this incredible community builder. So we saw an increase with confidence, we saw an increase with knowledge, and we saw less referrals in general with the patients. But where this became particularly powerful is during COVID. We work with neonatologists and pediatricians. In fact, we're the largest provider of newborn telementoring in India. But the doctors, as you can imagine, many of them pediatricians and neonatologists, were panicking because they were going to be sent into adult ICUs to run ventilators, to run CPAPs during COVID, and they weren't comfortable taking care of adults. And so we really helped assist, get the information out, again, set up these networks so they could also call each other. And again, it was always led in local language by local experts. And it was a very powerful program. And now we've done it across India. We're now in East Africa. And not only doctors, but nurses, midwives, and repair people, because that's all in emerging markets, which I know many of you have experience in. The repair of devices and repair of different things is always a big challenge, and we were supporting all these different types of clinicians.
So you're talking about point of care service, right? At the point of care, these physicians have the ability to get that mentoring. I think that's going to become more and more important, especially as we encounter what, Gail, you've called the silver wave of retirements, right? You're going to see the baby boomers, 41 million baby boomers starting to retire, and that's a knowledge system that we need to capture. They're not going to just suddenly disappear, but they're going to phase themselves out. And how can we capture that in a mentoring system? And that's something that you and I have talked about.
Yes, so what people may not be realizing, it was a shock to me, there are 76 million baby boomers who are retired now. And the initial rate was somewhere between 1.5% and 2.5% that people would retire. We've seen that accelerated to about 3%. So this year, there'll be 3 million additional baby boomers who have retired. And what that means in terms of a workforce is that there's a loss of the brain trust, as well as opportunities that we have seen that were exacerbated because of COVID. And one of the actual aspects that we have noticed, just in terms of cross industries, whether it's particularly in health tech, where a lot of interactions were used to be, have been lost.
Right.
And as a product of that, there's a socialization aspects in addition to just the actual learning of technology and skill sets. So one of the things that you and I, Chris, had an opportunity to sort of grapple with, and having a little fun here, if you wave the magic wand, is what can we do to re-engage seniors? And so let me just take a step back and just sort of frame the issue. Well, now that we have all these baby boomers who have retired, they're not just going to retire and hang out and do nothing. But in addition to that, because of just the natural laws of aging, there's going to be an increase in demand on the healthcare system, one. But the difference is that many of the baby boomers are saying, you know what, I actually don't want to be in care in any facility. I want to age in place at home. So what does that look like? And what could I have in terms of technology or services to help provide that kind of quality of care living? So that's good. So there's a sort of a consumer directive pressure that's pushing upstream as well as what's going on. And so what we're seeing now is an opportunity, as I would call it, not even just even the pandemic, but an opportunity where there's a new business models emerging where the regulatory environment is going to have to catch up. So we see that tension going on. And so what I'm hoping to see going forward is that we'll be able to bring these retirees back into the fold and help them co-create. So there's an organization that's called the Hatchery that's sort of an offspring of the AARP, is working with the Emory University. And this is a particular incubation center to help develop technology for senior citizens. I like to challenge that and say, look, that's a nice start, but it would be more important to actually bring senior folks in to actually co-create the kinds of technology that they can be best served and help. There's two things, right? So we have seen not only an opportunity for, there's interest in more healthcare in our broadly defined more health and wellness as opposed to just healthcare and medicine, but also there's a more of a pressure now for increasing push of adoptive technology, and this is an opportunity to take that advantage and bring those seniors into the fold.
Right, and as the son of an aging parent, as many of us probably have experienced, that's going to be huge. It's going to take the interaction of family members, peripheral family members, along with doctors, social services individuals, priests, all kinds of people, and there's going to be the need to integrate that multidisciplinary team, which speaks a lot to, Amir, some of the conversations you and I have had about multidisciplinary teams and the need to create good leadership models where you can have a diverse team, but also leaders that can code switch from technology to personal psychiatrist, psychologist to innovative technologist. So will you speak to that?
Absolutely, and I think the number one, in my opinion, the number one enemy of scalability and efficiency in precision medicine is definitely this, the fact that we have these gaps. Of course, it's a very multidisciplinary field. And I can tell you about these gaps. So I believe personalized education is the way forward. And I can give you an example of the gap. In 2003, we were able to sequence 92% of human genome. Since then, we have been able to reduce the cost of sequencing by 1 million times. And in 2007, Fitbit was born. So right now, I have a smartwatch that can collect my heart rate per second. So basically, we're collecting a lot of data, right? Billions of measurements. So the cost function started moving toward computation and storage, right? This is a need that we have right now. At the same time, in the same decade, cloud computing, utility computing was born. 2002, Amazon Web Services. 2006, Elastic Compute Cloud. 2008, Microsoft and Google Cloud. And we have the solution, right? So we have the problem, need, and then the solution comes together. But the problem is that, so basically, if properly implemented, then underserved communities and people in developing countries would be able to access to these larger scale medical applications and data sets. However, we're adding another layer of information to the system, right? And when we're talking about the larger scale, the scary looking, genomics data set, I believe there are like 3 layers at least. One is data. We're talking about mutations, right? Genes, diseases that geneticists and biologists are super good in that. Then we get to the tools that statistics, visualization, probability and distribution, that statisticians are good in that. Then we get to the third piece, which is technology, cloud computing, how to process these larger scale data sets, right? Mobile computing, edge computing. So if you bundle it all together and give it to a computer scientist, then they will run away. I've seen a lot of them. And then biologists also, it's really difficult. So the best way to move forward is to build confidence. As Krista mentioned about mentorship, we need to basically help students to build confidence with helping them with fundamental concepts. And then, they will. So basically, we need a cross-functional team of experts that they can communicate effectively, right? That would help a lot to accelerate precision medicine.
And you spoke about the teams, but you also spoke about the new collection of data and what we're going to do. And I think we're going to circle back to that. But both those ideas really cement the need for, or to look at our innovation spaces, right? And I'm going to direct this question to Ty, with regards to innovation spaces. But before I do that, I want to distinguish the concept of innovation space from accelerator. right? Because we hear a lot about accelerators. Accelerators are traditionally about taking a business idea and launching it successfully, whereas an innovation space is about developing the idea. And you have a lot of interesting comments, Ty, about what that would look like and what infrastructure is necessary, both physical infrastructure, but also organizationally. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I think it's really interesting being on this panel. We've talked about the need for distributed care to other parts of the world, other parts of the country. What we're seeing today as a trend within innovation is distributed innovation. Historically, we've thought of innovation spaces as you're going to go into a common workplace and you're going to collaborate together. But if you step back, innovation really occurs at the intersection of problems or need and technology or solutions. And just as care isn't always centralized, nor are the needs of the problems. They're distributed all over the world. And so as we think about modern innovation spaces, historically it's been about geographic proximity. Can we put people in the same room? This place where we are right now is all about that. Can we get a critical mass of people doing different things? They collide and they create ideas. And that should continue, and we try to build facilities that promote collisions. But not all needs are here in Palo Alto. They could be anywhere in the world. And so how do we integrate those with not just problems, but those with ideas and needs? What's going on here? How do we make geographic proximity less relevant?
Right.
So part of it is space design. So you stop thinking about, a WeWork type environment, and you then say, then how do we connect different parts of the world so that we can connect technology solutions with needs all over the world? And so innovation space is more than just physical space. It's that network of networks. And that's what we call innovation infrastructure.
I want to dive deeper into that because, everybody says, if somebody has the unfortunate cancer diagnosis, everybody says, well, I want the best doctor in the world. But really, do they want the best doctor in the world? Because they don't say, find me the best doctor in the world. What they say is, send me to the best facility in the world, and that's where the best doctors will be. So it's about creating the best facilities. But in your model, facility isn't a geographic location. Facility is a network of people and teams, right? And one of the big problems that we talked about was the amount of data that's being collected. But if you at McMaster University want to communicate with Amir at Stanford, how do you transmit that massive data, right? So if somebody in the audience was looking for a place to invest, that would be a good place, right? Technology and data transmission. Right?
So Chris, just a minor point I would say, sometimes it is about the facility.
Yeah.
There's some types of innovation. We often think of the innovator as the person in their parents' basement, developing an app or something.
Right.
There's some form of innovation. I'm going to pick radio pharma. You should not do that in your parents' basement unless you want the FBI to show up at your door. So there's some types of innovation and research that require physical infrastructure. But that's not to say that's where the need is.
Right.
And so it becomes a combination of physical infrastructure and digital infrastructure. So you're able to share that capability back and forth, both on the need and the delivery of the data.
Well, I wanted to, Gail, did you have it?
I just have an example. I love what you're saying, and it's reminding me of one of our earlier speakers who talked about mindset too, and I think that is so important for the innovation space. At Equalize Health, we partner with clinicians on the ground who have great ideas around medical devices. And just to give an example to what you're talking about, we work with an OB gynecologist who's in Botswana and South Africa. And he has helped us develop he's helping us develop a suite of products for postpartum hemorrhage, which I mentioned Friday around maternal bleeding. And it's so powerful because he's in the clinics every day. He can test ideas, he can get feedback. We do that as well, but he's on the front line. And he really, truly understands it. And I think part of this, which we weren't seeing innovators coming from any of the markets we're serving, but is the shift of mindset, but also creating these spaces, both locally, but on a global level, which is really exciting.
So I wanted to...
So funny you should mention. So one of the things, and then actually one of the partners is here on Stanford University, that a company that we're working with is called RT Safe, and they're using 3D modeling to use it for stereostatic radial surgery. But the idea is so that it helps people, like in terms of personalized medicine, is imagine we use yours. Imagine a phantom avatar by which they could actually, physicians could actually practice on, and then gain some confidence and also competency around delivering radiotherapy they wouldn't otherwise do, which is just super. And the interesting aspect about that, to your point, is that this is a multi-geographical collaboration. It doesn't reside in any one place.
Right.
And because you can leverage data and do it in a secure way of transfer, that it can be done anywhere. Right? And it's really cool. Yeah.
That distributed idea is key. I wanted to open it up to questions from the audience, if anybody has any questions in the audience. Yes, this gentleman in the back.
Well, Amir kind of made reference to it, but I'm curious. One of the things, at least, let's say from an American perspective, is healthcare is so expensive, right? And the costs have been going up. So what are the prospects in the next 10 to 25 years of using everybody, starting with your genomic data, and starting with this, Fitbitty collection of data? What are the prospects of dramatically dropping the costs of healthcare? And if it could be cracked in the developed world, that could scale to the developing world, to the point where you actually are talking about a whole new era of healthcare that is not just using, mentoring with video and stuff, but like we're starting over. Kind of how do we actually provide health to people?
Yeah, I think with respect to cloud computing, again, the cost of, hosting these data sets, of course, we can solve a problem on the cloud in different ways, right? So, but, like for example, Amazon EC2 provides 407 different instance types. Which one is the cheapest? Which one is the fastest? Which one is the most cost-efficient one? There are layers of storage that we have, right? Archival storage, cold line storage. So what I see here is that we should profile algorithms, right? They're like people. They have different needs. And this is what we did with VA MVP, Million Veteran Program, that we would profile an application, and we see that this application is actually memory intensive. So then, we'll recommend, memory intensive, like memory optimized instances or machines. Or like, when we're talking about IO bound or CPU intensive. So that's one thing, of course, we can reduce when you're scaling. If you can save $1, right? For instance, for VA, it's 1 million runs, we can save $1 million. At the same time also, I think we should move with deep data, right? Well annotated. We don't want junk data. Like if I give you my data set, right, my wearable data for the last 2 years, I've been, going through a lot, lifestyle, moving. That's not going to help you much. It's going to add a lot of false positive, right? But if I give you 2 weeks of my data that's well annotated, it most probably would help you a lot with respect to the algorithm. So I hope that answered part of your question.
So I think we had another.
So can I just add one thing? I think we're going to see a sea change in affordability over the next 10 to 20 years, and I think there's a number of reasons for that. One is that there's more serving underserved markets, and that's going to trickle back into the higher income markets. I think you're going to see a real reckoning with consumables and planned obsolescence and a lot of things that impact the environment, and I think we're going to see a lot of changes in healthcare delivery in the next 10 to 15 years, and hopefully even sooner.
Chris, can I just add one thing, and I'm not sure if it's going to get cheaper, but we're also seeing a sea change from managing symptoms of a disease to curative medicine. So you see us move towards cell and gene therapy. You're curing the disease, and that's super amazing. But I want you to step back to what we talked about at the start of the meeting this morning. What's the business model?
Subscriptions.
Well, but think about if you're managing your diabetes, your high blood pressure, whatever, and you're buying a pill every day, that creates an annuity type cash flow, right? What if you cure the disease once? It's a one-time payment. That's a fundamental change in the business model, And we have to make sure that the business model catches up with the technology
And then it
change
doesn't become a
and the
tyrannical
deployment.
sort of
Yeah.
system where I'm
It's
paid.
not just about the science. The
Well,
business model has to
So let's
keep
push that a
up.
little farther, right? Let's say that is there a way to can actually incentivize someone to actually prevent, right? So if there was a way that you could change a business model whereby you could say, given your family's genetics, whatever it is, that somehow by you taking care and responsibility of your own self, that you're rewarded for that, right? And that's a different way.
That's what Mike-
Absolutely.
Okay, so thank you so much for your time and insights. I'm going to start calling you 23andMe since we're now 23% of GDP. It used to be 19. So hopefully we can start changing that around and go the other direction with some of the insights. So thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Sure.